All right. Hello, everybody. Hope you all are doing well. This is DFS Army's pre-lock show for NBA, where we are here to walk through this 6-game slate. It's going to be a good one. I think there's some plays that I like that aren't getting as much ownership as I thought they would. How are you feeling about it, Brandon?
Yeah, we have some pretty good games on tonight's slate. There are some one-offs here and there, but overall, I'm liking it so far. So definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of chalk I like too. There's some chalk I'm not as excited about, but we'll see. We'll see. We'll get there. We'll go ahead and jump right into it. For those of you who are new, though, this is DFS Army. This is the optimizer that we're looking at, the domination station. Uh, if you're interested in having access to the optimizer or being a part of the Discord where we provide support, feel free to click the link in the description. Promo code BDUBB, BDUB for a 10% discount on that. But let's get into the important stuff. William, good to see you, man. Let's jump into these games. We'll start off with the Bulls going up against the Pistons. For the Bulls, when it comes to injury news tonight, there definitely is some, but we don't have a lot when it comes to Chicago. They're pretty healthy. The interesting thing about this game is that it is the tied for the second highest total game on the slate, pretty close spread. And so in theory, that should make us a bit more interested in this Bulls team, but who are you looking at here, Brandon?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite games on the slate, of course. So I do like quite a few people here. First is Zach LaVine. So fortunately, didn't have to do anything to get to him.
Shows up naturally.
Yep, shows up naturally. He still had a great price, great matchup. So looking for him to do well here. Um, Another guy I forced in was Vooch. He hasn't been in the best form, but again, it's a really soft matchup, and I don't mind this 7.8K price tag. So I did put a 15% min on him for that reason. And then I am getting a little bit of other people. Let me see. I didn't force anyone else in, but Patrick Williams, I'm okay with 13%. We don't have like really any standout value, I would say, outside of TJ McConnell. So I don't mind mixing in some of these other 4K guys, especially in this matchup. And I think that is it for me.
See, I already knew we were going to have some disagreements on this first one. I don't like the Bulls that much. I like Vooch. Vucevic makes a ton of sense to me. We know the Pistons don't have the best front court, so I'm not really overly concerned about playing Vucevic. I do, or not playing him. So I have a 10% min on him. I didn't go quite as strong as you, but I definitely understand the play at 7,800. Zach LaVine, I get, because shooting guard in particular and small forward just aren't the best positions. And 7K, he's been crushing it. I get it. But the Pistons have not been bad defensively this year. They've been playing at a relatively slow pace. It's a pretty neutral spot for them. I put a 50% cap on him, and I only have a 50% cap on him because he's 7K and shooting guard sucks. If it was a larger slate and there were more options, I would be so comfortable fading it. And then I almost wanted to take a shot on Josh Giddey, but I didn't. And actually, I'm going to change that LaVine max to a 40%. I just don't want him showing up as a core play. And then Vucevic is showing up there. Patrick Williams is showing up around 9%. Soft matchup for him at power forward. And Kobe White is showing up in about 1% of my lines, but I'm going to be significantly under the field on him there as well. Just not a game I like as much as or a team I like as much as I want to. So moving on, we have the Pistons going up against the Bulls. I do like this side a lot more. The Bulls are playing at the fastest pace. They're not a good defense. But do you like this team as much as I do?
Oh, yeah. So the obvious play here is Cade Cunningham. I mean, it's hard not to like him. He's just on another level this season. He can put up a triple-double any night, and this matchup can't really get much better because the Bulls suck. So I do love him quite a bit, and he'll be a core play for me. Jaden Ivey, I do like him as well. put a 25% min on him just to make sure he doesn't fall too low because he was starting to go a little low. So I always like to remember to do that so they don't slip from my lines or whatever. But I do like him quite a bit. Tobias, I think I was somewhere around Phil weight. I'm okay if I'm under because I say it all the time. He's just kind of average. Yeah, I'm at 7%. Like I think it was last night or whenever their last game was, he started out hot and then he just stayed at like 30 points for the rest of the night. So he's just somebody I'm okay with not going too crazy on. And then I'm actually not really getting to anyone else here. Like if Duran showed up a little, I'd be okay with it. But my main focal points here will be Cade and Ivy.
Yep. And Dixon, I see you. We'll touch on it. You know me. I don't try and predict blowouts too often. It looks like you're with us. Vooch is gonna eat. Levine should eat too, but he a bum when I play / bet him. Maybe that's my bias on Levine. It's just every time I play him and he's chalky, he disappoints me. But, at least I'll still be over the field.
Disclaimer on him, too. Like, I don't have a crazy amount. After I tweak my exposures and stuff, I just have 20% of them.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I was hoping as I made more changes, he would just go down naturally so I didn't have to take a strong stance, but he kept showing up. Thomas, what's up, man? Buyer beware. I'm playing both, so they probably will shit the bed. Oh, Dixon. Hopefully not. Jose said at Josiah, what cheap players are we going to have the most of in our lineups? We'll touch on them, and if we don't, ask again at the end, Jose. We'll get you right. Dixon, we're on the same page here. Again, Jose, we'll touch on the Sixers here soon. And Kamal, sorry, I'll call you Reynolds just in case I'm butchering last name. We'll touch on the core plays at the end of the show too. And yeah, we'll touch on that too towards the end, David. For me, when it comes to the Pistons, like I said, this is a team I want to target because they have the soft matchup here. Bulls are fine. Like, I'm not anti them. They're still showing up in my lines, but I'm going out of my way to force exposure to the Pistons. I did something similar to you on Ivy. I put a 30% min on him just to make sure he showed up. I have a 25% min on Harris just to make sure he keeps showing up. 10% min on Duran, which I never feel great about. He's a very volatile player, but he has high upside in a pretty soft matchup. So I wanted to put a 10% min on him. And then Cade, I would be happy if Cade showed up in every single one of my lines tonight. He started to fall for me, so I put a 50% min on him just to make sure he was showing up in at least half of my lines. Yep. But yeah, I really, really like the Pistons tonight, and I wouldn't even be totally upset if you were getting some Fontecchio exposure or even guys like Hardaway Jr., but I didn't go there personally. Let me double check. Yeah, no one else there. All right, that was my favorite game of the slate. That's the only one I'm going to have a long rant for, so I wanted to go along there. For the Pacers, this is a team where we have some news that we're waiting on. Miles Turner is questionable. I think that has a pretty dramatic impact on the slate, but what is your thought process here, Brandon?
So love McConnell, as does the rest of the field. You can see he's going to be pretty chalky tonight. So, again, we don't really have that standout value tonight. So this is another good matchup of the night. So I do like him quite a bit, and he just makes lines work. So he will be a core play. Walker, I did kind of boost his projection. I gave him a thumbs up to make him a core play as well for the same reasons I mentioned as McConnell. I'll love him even more, of course, if Turner is rolled out, and I'll probably go 100% on him, to be honest. But I still like him. You can play him at small forward and power forward, and he's cheap. So I don't mind going way over on that spot. Matherin, I wasn't really getting too much in him. So he's just another person I wanted to make sure I'm at least close to fill weight on. Overall, since some of these guys have been out for him, he's been really solid, and I think he can do well tonight. Turner, I didn't do anything with him. He's showing up around fill weight. Of course, we'll adjust if he gets ruled out. And then I did put a 15% man on Siakam and Hallie. They both are volatile, but this matchup is just too good not to have exposure to those two who have pretty high upside and are still at decent prices.
Yeah, and if you were a little nervous about playing the Pacers like I was, this game now it's tied with the last game for the highest total on the slate. And so that's really all I needed to know to force a little bit more exposure to these Pacers. I never love playing the Pacers, but this is a good spot, good matchup against a really bad Raptors team. Did the Pacers play last night, or am I losing it a little bit?
It might have been the night before last night.
No, it looks like they played last night, right? Against
Okay.
Miami.
You might be right.
So this is a back-to-back for them, which makes me a little bit more nervous. But really, if anything, it lowers the chance of a blowout against this Toronto team that has found ways to keep games pretty close. So not going to overthink that. I did something pretty much the same thing probably. I put a 15% min on Halliburton, 15% min on Siakam. Miles Turner is a very viable play. He's showing up for me around field weight exposure. Mathurin, I have a 15% min on. Walker, I have a 25% min on currently in the domination station. He's showing up around 31% naturally. I just wanted to make sure he didn't fall. I think he's a very viable core play, like you said, especially if Miles Turner gets ruled out. That's really when I'm going to ramp that all the way up. But for now, I'm just going to wait and see. McConnell's showing up a crap ton by himself, and he's looking like a solid play. Just like you said, it's that way for everybody. If Turner gets ruled out, or anyone stand out for you in that case? I mean, probably Obi, right?
Yep, I'll definitely get some OB exposure, and then I'll definitely increase my exposure to other guys, especially Siakam.
Yeah, agreed. All right. Next up, we have the Toronto Raptors, who are missing guys. And so that's what makes this team a little bit more interesting and viable. They don't show up too much by themselves, but they show up close to field weight exposure. We have Quickly out. Kelly O's been out. Bruce Brown's out. Scotty Barnes has been out for a good bit. Those are really the main key pieces here. Anyone you like here that you forced exposure to or anything like that?
Yep. So I put a 20% man on Barrett. He just wasn't showing up for me. I know he's coming off a really, really good game. I think he put up like 68 DraftKings point last game. So it can feel a little chasey, but the only reason why I'm forcing him in is just due to the matchup against the Pacers. Like I said, it should be fast paced, and he has the highest upside on the team. So definitely want some of him tonight. And then it looks like the field is kind of getting on that Podol train. He's somebody I've been playing for the last few games, and he just keeps going under the radar. So I was a little upset to see he finally had some ownership, but I'm still going to play him. I do like him a good deal. So I think I had, where was he? 20%. So I wouldn't mind if that was a bit higher, but I'll be slightly over the field on him. And these other guys I'm not forcing in. I'm just going to let the DS do his thing with them.
Yeah. It's always terrifying. Like, it's Barrett and Jakob Podol who are coming off 60-point games. Well, no. Jakob Podol had 50 last time out. Then he had 60 the game before against Detroit. And now we have RJ Barrett coming off a 60-point game against Boston. And you're just like, oh, this feels like we're chasing. Like you said, I don't think I'm going to probably feel great about it, but I'm still going to take my shot here on them. I did pretty much the same thing. 20% min on Barrett, 20% min on Jakob. I have a 10% min on Grady Dick. Again, this is just a game I want exposure to. We know he has 40-point upside, and he's 6,300. Not going to lie, this sounds crazy just because his usage rate has been a little bit lower the last few games, but he has 25 to 30% usage rate upside. I low-key like Grady Dick more than Zach LaVine. Like, I know that's wild, but low-key, I like it. So I'm going to increase that to 15% just to make sure he's showing up a bit more. Let's see. See, Dixon, I didn't see this comment, but I'm glad we're on the same page. I'm not going to read your comments out loud. I agree. I wish RJ Barrett was a little bit cheaper too. It made me feel a bit better about the play, but it's all right. All right. Let's see. Next up, we have the Sixers going up against the Heat. This is when things start to get a little bit less fun from a who we're playing situation on the slate. For me, when it comes to Philadelphia tonight, it's weird. Like, we do have both Maxey and Embiid out, but they're going up against Miami. And so there's not too many guys outside of the obvious who are standing out for me on this slate too much. What about you?
Yeah, just two guys for me here. Jared McCain, chalk of the slate. He's just looking amazing. Embiid is out again. Maxi's still out. Even last game when Embiid came back in, Paul George, like, he's still smashed. I'm not going to think too much about that play, and he'll be a core play for sure.
Yep.
And I was going back and forth, but I ended up putting a 10% min on Paul George just because Embiid is out, and he should still have a lot of usage as well. I think him and McCain kind of both do their thing here tonight. Miami's usually not one of my favorite teams to target, but 8,300 for a somewhat low on Paul George, I don't mind taking shots there. And then rest of this team is looking pretty ugly.
Yeah. Like you said, just never a situation where you want to go out of your way typically, but I think that's a good call on Paul George with Maxey and Embiid out. I am going to follow your lead on that and put a 10% min on Paul George just to get him showing up a little bit more. He's showing up by himself around like 3 to 4%, but I would prefer to be a little bit closer to field weight exposure on him. So good call there. And yeah, McCain, that's pretty much it for me. Next up for the Miami Heat going up against the 76ers. Miami, they are, when it comes to injury news, without Rozier, without Jaquez, nothing new really. Who stands out, if anyone, for you on the Heat?
So I did give Duncan a thumbs down because he was showing up as a core play. He's just somebody I don't want as core. I still have a lot of them. I think he was at 4, or just about 40%. So I'll still be slightly over the field, and I get it. He's had some good games, but he still is volatile, and I just don't want to go too crazy on somebody like him. Jovic, I don't mind as a value piece either. He's showing up naturally, and I didn't have to do anything with him. And then the only one I did something to was I did put a 10% min on Bam. He can kind of have some iffy games as well, but with Embiid out, he should have a pretty good matchup down low. I don't think Drummond or Yabusele will be able to do much to stop Bam from doing whatever he wants. So I did want to take a shot there.
Yeah, it's hard to get mad at playing like a low-owned Bam. It's when he's chalky when you're like, okay, let's chill a little bit. I think all that makes sense to me. I did absolutely nothing to the Miami Heat and the DS. Duncan Robinson shows up around 31% naturally. Don't want to touch that. I kind of want him to stay right there. So fingers crossed that continues to stay the trend. And then Jovic is showing up in 6% of my lines. And I'm okay being a little under the field on him. Like I said, not my favorite game. Next up, we have the Wizards going up against the Knicks. For the Wizards tonight, when it comes down to injury news, really, we have Bilal listed as questionable. That is pretty significant. That could switch things up on the slate. We haven't gotten that news yet, have we?
I don't think so.
Yeah, okay. So if he ends up getting ruled out, we can maybe look at a few of the cheaper options on this team. But for now, they're not really standing out for me too much. Did you force anyone here?
Nope, at least not yet. This side of the ball is just not very appealing. The only one that I'm still on the fence about is Kyle Kuzma. He's just somebody I like to target when he's low owned, and 6,800 is a really good price for what he can do. So the Knicks defense has been a bit softer this year, so it would not surprise me at all if he was somebody who did well tonight. But outside of that, I can't get too excited with anyone here.
Yeah, I'm with you. I have a 10% min on Kyle Kuzma. I like being over the field on him. Like you said, in a weird way, this Knicks team, they've been struggling defensively. And in particular, I like attacking with forwards and centers primarily against this Knicks team. There's a reason for that. There's a pretty glaring weakness there, even though he's a great DFS player now. But, Cat is someone that you don't have to be overly concerned about from a defensive standpoint. So yeah, Kyle Kuzma is someone I am forcing exposure to, and Alexander Sarr. He's someone that I like being over the field on, not by too much. He's gross. I think you all probably saw that last night when he only scored 13 fantasy points with playing 23 minutes, but he also has 46-point upside, and we saw that the game before against Atlanta in a pretty soft matchup. And so this is a soft matchup now for him, and so I like being over the field on him. Just with an 8% min currently, I don't want much more than that. I thought about getting a bit more aggressive, but hard pass. So that's pretty much it. Did you think about pool? For me, the matchup was too tough.
Nah,
Yeah.
just Kuz for me.
Yep, just Coos. All right. Then we have the Knicks going up against the Wizards. This is the side that you want to play. We all know Washington is not a good defense. And not really too much injury news either here. Who do you like?
So Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah.
I don't know what's gotten into him this year, but man, like
Different man.
he's just different, as all I'll say, and it's hard not to like him. And he's still at 9K. Like at this point, he should be like in the 10K range. I'm not complaining, but he should be priced higher than 9K. So
consistently hitting 50 plus, 60,
yep.
70 point upside on some slates. He should be more expensive and in a soft matchup. He could burn us because we're saying this, but it's still true.
Yeah, I know. Not knock on wood, but I do love him, and I'll be way over the field on him. OG, I didn't have to do anything to him. He's showing up a good amount because, again, that forward position is kind of meh tonight. So I do have a decent amount of him. And then I did put a 10% man on Bridges, Hart, and Brunson. I honestly might go a bit higher, but those guys really weren't showing for me. So I definitely had to have a little bit of all three of those guys in this kind of matchup. And then I'm even taking a shot on campaign. McBride is out. And if this does get ugly, he can potentially get some blowout runs. So he's just another cheap value piece that I wanted to throw in the mix with some kind of sketchy value on tonight's slate. So not going too crazy. I might even bump that up to 10%, but I wouldn't recommend going much higher than that.
Yeah, no, I like those calls. I like you said, we are trying to pick on this team. And so all that made sense to me. I like the shot on Cameron Payne too. I wasn't on that, but I think it makes sense. It's like you said, not something you're not going to feel good about it. He's not going to see a lot of minutes. We'll be lucky if we see 20, but
yeah,
I do like
close to 20 minutes.
Yeah. Like if we see 20, 22, 23, he can definitely get there, especially if you said, like you said, this game gets ugly. I have a 15% min on OG. Sometimes the DS does some weird things where he wasn't showing up for me at all. And then I put a 15% min on him, and now he's showing up in 30% of my lines. It's fine. I'm comfortable having exposure to him, even though he can be a bit volatile these days. Bridges, Hart, I did the same thing as you, 10% min there. I didn't force exposure to Brunson. I just need the price tag to go down at this point. I can't trust him anymore with his usage rate continuing to go lower and lower. He did have that 50-point game against Brooklyn the other night. Still don't trust him. I just need to see more consistency in that price tag go down. So, like we said, and then I have a shit ton of Cat. It's unfathomable how much of him I have. All right, next up we have the Rockets going up against the Bucks. If I had to guess, we both probably like the same guy here. Who are you looking at?
Just two guys for me. Van Vliet. I think he's kind of coming back into his own and doing what we know he can do. So hopefully he can continue that trend. The Bucks is just another team that I don't worry about defensively, and they really haven't been that great this year. So I don't mind going back to him at this price. And then Şengün for the same exact reason. I love his ownership, and he's still fairly cheap for his upside. And hopefully he doesn't get into foul trouble with Giannis, of course. But outside of Giannis, like, he should be able to smash in this spot as well. So I think I had a little bit of maybe Amen and Eason, but it wasn't much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
1% Amen. That's it.
Yeah, you can call it a pre-lock show leverage play if you want to, but I have a ton of Fred VanVleet, 30% to be exact. We've been playing guards against this Milwaukee team all year, and like you said, we're starting to see Fred VanVleet get into a bit of a better form. He's still below 7K. This is when I like to play Fred VanVleet, and he's not the chalk on the slate. Good spot. I'm going to be significantly over the field on him. Pretty much that simple for me. Outside of that, I like the Almond call. I wish he was a little bit lower owned. That's the only reason I didn't force exposure to him. Let me see if any of these Rockets are showing up, though. It's really just Fred that I forced in and 1% Almond Thompson. I would be comfortable with more, but I'm not going to force it. This is another good game to target on the slate, but it's less exciting as some of the early ones we had. And then for the Bucks, they're not really dealing with any injury news. They're just bad. And so it's weird. I have a guy I like a good bit, but who are you looking at here, if anybody?
Yeah, I actually don't think I'm going to have anyone on this side of the ball. I don't think I can do 12K Giannis because the value just really isn't that great tonight. And I wish Dame was a bit cheaper too. And I just like other guards more than him. I'd rather play Cade, of course, than play him. So, yeah, no one is really sticking out to me here.
Yeah, now it's really hard for me to argue with any of that, but Lillard is my pivot off of Cade. I do have 50% Cade Cunningham, so you have to keep that in mind. But 10% Damian Lillard, because I do like the matchup against Fred. We know he's not a great defender. I think this could go back and forth between those two. And at 2% ownership, the price tag makes you want to be sick, but these are the only two guys who do anything on this team. Giannis, who's just, I don't want to say too expensive, but he's really too expensive for this slate. And then Lillard. And Lillard's a little bit more cheap, where I feel like I can fathom having him in my slate or lines. So yeah, Lillard at 10%, and that's it. I don't want to look at anybody else there. Outside of that, we have the Magic going up against the Suns. Did any of these guys stand out for you?
This game looks pretty gross, but I will be playing a couple of guys on this side of the ball. So I did put a 15% man on Franz. I mean, he's just another guy that's playing really well ever since Paolo went out, and he's showing us some really, really good upside. So I don't mind taking a shot on him tonight. And then Goga, I would understand if no one wanted to go there, but I do like his price, and his matchup should be a bit easier with Nurkic out. So I don't mind getting to him as well.
Yeah.
And then I did have some Isaac showing up. I didn't do anything to him, but I'll probably be around Phil Wade. He's just not another guy I don't like going too crazy on. But again, value's kind of average tonight, so don't mind throwing him in the mix.
And who's that last guy you were talking about?
Jonathan Isaac.
Yeah, I agree. The good thing about Goga is you don't have to force him. He just shows up naturally in the DS right around, for me, around 13%. If I had to force more ownership on him, I wouldn't feel great, but I think your 10% call makes sense. Franz, I wish I could play him. I cannot. It's, for me, a matchup and low total thing. Would it surprise me if he goes off? No, it's just not for me tonight. I can't play everybody. And then Jonathan Isaac is showing up in 1% of my lines, and that's about it. Next up, we have the Suns side of things where, it's a little bit more viable. We have value, I guess, because Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal are out and Nurkic is out, like you just mentioned. Who are you taking shots on from this team?
I didn't force anyone in. Of course, Grayson is showing up a bit. He's another value piece you can throw in the mix. Also, I did lower his projection because he was showing up as a core play, and I had to fix that. So I think I have like 5%. I'll be somewhere in between 5 to 10% on him. And then Plumlee, I want to like, but I'm just not a huge fan of this matchup, so I probably won't force him in, but I don't hate it if you want to take a shot on him.
Yeah. I mean, I think most people are expecting Plumlee to start and then Oso to kind of see the backup minutes. He has, we have him projected for 25 minutes, which feels a little strong, but I did cap him at 30%. So I'll have plenty of exposure to a value option on the slate, but I don't get excited about him. I really want to take a shot on Devin Booker here, but the matchup's tough against the Magic and low total game. Hard for me to really find a way to make it make sense, even with all of the other guys out. Did you consider taking a shot on Booker at all?
I did, but then I remembered some of the other guards on the slate, and I was like,
Yeah,
yeah, nah, I don't think I can waste this spot on
I
Booker.
agree. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I would like to. So, but I'm not. That's what matters at the end of the day. What am I actually doing? He is not showing up. And so it is what it is. All right, y'all. We'll look at some of these questions that y'all had throughout the show, kind of work our way backwards. Guab, actually, I totally butchered your name. I can't even think of how to pronounce it. But 1804 said, do you guys lock players or just boost the fantasy points? Brandon, do you want to talk through your strat?
Yeah, I rarely lock players. Like it would have to be like some obvious no-brainer value play for me to lock them, especially like on a smaller slate. I'd say that's most of the time when we lock somebody, but outside of that, I don't do it, especially on bigger slates. But I do boost projections here and there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, I make adjustments based off of who's showing up in my lines and who I want to see more exposure to. So I know Brandon mentioned it a few times. You can even look at his DS, he'll dislike or like players. Sometimes I'll do that if that's making guys show up the amount I want them to. Other times you'll hear me say I'm putting a min on that guy because I'm going to force exposure to them and make sure they show up the way I want them to. So a bit of a mix, but I don't really ever lock a guy. Cade or Brunson? For me, it's Cade.
Cade for sure.
Honestly, not even close. Jose said underweight on Duncan Robinson. I am not, but Brandon, I think you are, right?
No, I'm actually slightly over. I'm at 40%.
Yeah, I'm at 45. So yeah, I have plenty. Let's see. Any love for Love? Harlock, man, didn't even think about him for a second. Did you, Brandon?
Yeah. No, and Butler is back too, which kind of makes him even grosser to play.
Yeah. Should there be a rule that everybody should have in play for tonight's slate? I don't really use rules for NBA. For NFL and probably every other sport, there's rules that I like to utilize, but yeah, I don't really try to limit how much of a guy I'm getting from a team unless it's pretty rare. I'll do it on occasion, but not really ever. And you don't either, do you, Brandon?
Yeah, this is my settings right here, and as you can see, like it's as basic as it gets. Like exposures and tweaking those is where it's at.
Oh, and also I really appreciate the nice comment there. It's really sweet. Like you said, DFS Army, man, we gotta crush it. Let's see. Torn Prince and Brooke Lopez, full bum status. You're not wrong. Let's get it. Agreed. OG said, hey, with a lot of point guard value, rank Cade, McCain, Walker, Fox on FanDuel. Good call out. Am I missing anybody? I can go ahead and rank these guys from my perspective. I would say it's Cade, Fox, McCain, Walker. What's your thought process here?
On
Walker's really good.
FanDuel, I would actually put Fox first. McCain just because of the value that you're getting from him, and then Cade.
Yeah, I'll be playing a lot of Fox if I was playing on FanDuel tonight. He's a great play. Bobo, Mega Royal. What are you on today? Watch him off. This always happens with him, though. Mega Royal brings up some random guy I didn't think about, and then he goes off. Did you think about Bobo at all, Brandon?
I did not. He did not cross my mind.
Yeah, I like Bobo, though, but I didn't even know he was still on the team, to be honest. Diego said, what's up? Late to the party. You didn't miss too much, man. We're still looking at it. Brunson suffers from Tyrese Maxiitis. You are not wrong here lately. Let's see. I see you, Phil. That was low-key shady. David said, any chance you guys can talk about the two games that FanDuel is playing, Atlanta versus Sacramento, Golden State versus the Clippers for GPP purposes, please and thank you. I think we touched on Fox. I think he's a really big piece that stood out for me when I looked at it very, very briefly, and nobody else. Anyone stand out for you?
Yep, I'm actually pulling it up. You just give me 1 second. So Kings and Hawks, I would kind of like the other night. I say Lyles and Fox would be my must plays for sure, and then I'll be okay with Herter and Murray kind of being in the mix wherever they fall.
Can you see what the total is on that game or no?
236.5. So that game should be like that would if I was playing on FanDuel, that game would be the target game for sure.
Good
like
call.
A priority.
For sure.
Atlanta side, not really liking anyone too much on this side. Maybe some Okongwu. Outside of that, and then the Warriors and Clippers. That game is kind of looking gross. Not gonna lie. So maybe a shot on Curry. That's about it. But I probably wouldn't target too many people here.
Agreed. All right, core plays. I'll give you a share. For me, it's still in flux a little bit. Let me do another run. But who are you looking at, Brandon?
1 second. So I have McCain, McConnell, Walker, Cat, and Cade.
Yeah, it's not going to shock me if I have exactly that. I'm at 100 lines right now. There's still 40 more to go, and I'll be able to give you an exact answer. Jose said, is it wise to lock in Kane on the Sixers? I didn't lock him in, but he was showing up in 96% of my lines, so pretty damn close to it. But if you're 20 maxing, that's really the only scenario I would lock him in.
Yep.
For. And then to answer your question, I have McCain, McConnell, Cunningham, Walker, Cat. Is that what you had?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. I had a feeling it'd be pretty similar. Yeah, if Durant gets into foul trouble, it definitely does make things a bit grosser, but hopefully he doesn't. You never know. And then Jose's other question was cheap players, 4K to 4,500. Are we going to have the most in our lineups on DK, or are we going that low? I think there's quite a few players down here that are viable. Who do you look at, Brandon?
Yeah, I'll just say my top three, which we just named a couple, but Walker and McConnell from the Pacers.
Yep.
And then my third highest is, as gross as it may sound, Duncan Robinson at 40%.
Yeah, and I now have around 35% Duncan Robinson, which is exactly what I want. That way, if he crushes, I'm along for the ride. If he fails, which we all know is so likely, it's not going to burn me. So I'm at around 35%, but I think that list is still exactly correct. I have Duncan Robinson, McConnell, Walker, and then McCain. Or no, there's one other guy you mentioned there. But yeah, my group is exactly the same, and I have Oso showing up in about 30% of my lines. I did cap him, though. Let's see. Any new questions? 1804 said, I noticed with FanDuel, and they are going crazy with their pricing. If we put Fox as a point guard, do we go straight to a cheaper point guard, or would you guys go to Brunson? I would look at... Well, what's your thought process here, Brandon?
So yeah, Fox would be for sure, and then McCain would be my other guard. I don't think I would necessarily force another expensive guard. It's hard to say because I'm not actually playing it, so I'll have to actually do it myself. But I'll just say those would be my two starting points at point guard is Fox and McCain.
No, I agree tenfold. I'm not looking at Brunson tonight, personally. So any other name you might have mentioned there, I might have been more interested, but Brunson is off my list for a good minute until his price tag goes down. If he's cheaper on FanDuel, that could sway things for me, but I'm not completely sure, to be honest. David, appreciate you, man. Appreciate all of you all for sticking around. I know it's a Monday night. It's usually NFL night for a lot of people. So appreciate y'all. If y'all could like this show so people know that you're watching, that's always helpful. Jose said, so you lock in your core and 20 maxes? No, I do not do that. But I'm more open to locking someone if I 20 max is really the thought process there. So with my core, pretty much if I'm 20 maxing or 150 maxing, they're usually at least 60% or above. I don't force that, but that's usually the case for my core plays. But I'm not locking them, no. 1804 said, should we force Zuba since Jackson Davis is like a rookie and Looney is out? No, I mean, the Warriors have a lot of depth. They play everybody. And so it's hard to ever get overly excited about any of those guys. So I wouldn't force it. But what do you think, Brandon?
I think he's talking about Zubac on the opposite
the
side.
Clippers. Yeah.
Again, it's hard to give you an exact answer since I'm not playing it, but
not crazy.
I don't hate it because he is low owned, and I guess 7,300 isn't the worst price for him with how he's been playing. So I don't know if he'd be a priority, but if you're like doing 150, I wouldn't mind a small shot. Definitely not a single entry.
I mean, we saw what he did the other night against the Kings with not the Kings, against what team am I thinking about? The Thunder with Chet out. And so definitely not wild. We know that they definitely can increase his usage in good matchups, but I agree. Not something I'm overly excited about still. Exactly. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Force Wilder said Embiid going through warm-ups. We already know he's out, though, don't we?
I thought we did, but
he's doubtful.
Not.
Yeah, he's doubtful. I really just assumed. But yeah, I would, we'll have to wait and see if he plays. I mean, the only thing it changes is that I'm not. I don't know. It just ruins Drummond or Yabusele if people were playing them.
Yep.
I still don't love the matchup, though. Would you consider Embiid?
No.
Let me see. He's 10K.
Nope.
Yep. So if he plays, if he doesn't, it doesn't really move the needle. It would make me get rid of that 10% min on Paul George, though.
Yep, same.
Would make that happen. B-Dub said, with Bogdanovic coming back tonight for the Hawks, is it worth punting to him for FanDuel GPP? It allows me to get Fox, Cade, Franz, and Podol. I don't hate that list.
I don't mind it just because, again, like that would be like one of my target games. I would make a priority. Only thing that concerns me is I don't know how many minutes he'll see. I mean, I imagine it's for sure over 20. So I don't hate it. I'll just be a little concerned with how long he's been out.
Yeah, I agree. Do you guys think a 4 or 3 game stack can take down the slate today? I mean, yeah, for sure. Or maybe if you mean like 3 players or 4 players from the same team, I would still say, yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't force a stack of any kind, but it's not something I would try to avoid. Do you have any thoughts here?
Yeah, it's possible for sure, but like we always say, we don't force stacks, and it's not really a priority for us to do.
Mutt's hooking us up, letting us know that Embiid is possible. Turner's out. That is good information. That really forces Walker into becoming a core play. I know he already was for you, Brandon, but
yeah, I'm kind of upset because now he's definitely going to be the chalk.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm going to just delete this 80 and I'm going to change that back to 100.
Yeah. That makes so much sense. And then does anyone else stand out for you with Turner out? I think we're already playing so many of these guys, but go ahead.
Obi, I didn't have any exposure to, but now I will. And then, like I said, I'll definitely probably bump up Siakam more as well.
Yeah, it will adjust quite a few ownerships just naturally because Miles Turner was showing up in like 10 to 15% of my lines at the center only position. So that's naturally just going to fluctuate some of the exposures I had at the center position. And so, yeah, I'm with you. With him gone, I don't know if we've updated Obi's projection yet, but I'm fine with him showing up a bit more. And then you're right. I'm going to force probably like 20, 25% Siakam to try and make that happen. Hope you caught that. Everyday things. We just touched on that. If the Pacers go small and run Podol off the floor, definitely not impossible by any means. We've seen them do that quite a few times, but I still think Jakob Podol's a good play.
Yep, I
I'm still
wouldn't
going
be
to
too concerned with that.
Yeah. I'm still going to play a good amount. With Lyles on Capella and Sarr on Towns, which center most likely to foul? Bro, I'm telling you, I'd never think about that, really, ever.
No.
But most likely, both. They both like to foul a good bit. Probably Lyles, just because, I don't really have a great reason. Sarr, I doubt he'll cover Towns the entire game. Is there any game with blowout risk? All of them, every single slate. They can all blow out anytime. I don't even really like to say there's one more than the other, but I mean, technically the spread is on the Knicks Washington game, but there's always a valid concern for blowouts, especially on this slate where it seems like there's quite a few guys potentially missing. Dame and ABC both in, helpful, appreciate that. But y'all, I think that's probably all of the questions. I'm not seeing anything new pop in. Oh, there you go, James. We touched on the best 3 value options a little bit ago, but I'll run through them again. Jarrett McCain, TJ McConnell, Jarris Walker. They're all super chalk. If you want to get a little bit different, now it's probably Duncan Robinson added into the mix. And Oso Ighodaro is also a viable option. When it comes to FanDuel, is there anyone else that stands out for you, Brandon?
Lyles is thrown in the mix on FanDuel, and then it would still be McConnell and Walker. I'd say would probably be my next 2 after him.
Yeah, I think Lyles is a very viable value play if he's considered. Yeah, that's not bad. All right, y'all. Appreciate the support. We'll see you all tomorrow for sure. And I hope you all crush tonight and we can celebrate in the Discord. Peace out, y'all.
Big time. No man. Diamonds in my teeth. I got a lot of shine.